Hello my friends, welcome back to my sewing room for another Raggedy Rescue Q&A. This is Jennifer. In 2024, I shared a lot of videos about rescuing and restoring Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls, and I've had some really wonderful questions. These are questions that have been left in those videos in the last 6 months or so, and questions that I did not answer in my previous Q&A. I will leave links to that Q&A and to all of my restoration and Raggedy Rescue videos in the description. So if you need to learn how to add hair, if you want to know how to wash the dolls, if you're looking to make new clothes for your rescue, all of that is already in my Raggedy Rescue playlist. If you have a question that I don't answer here, please feel free to leave it in comments. First question is from Astral Melody 3 asking, how common is it to find a Raggedy Ann and Andy in a thrift store like Goodwill or Salvation Army? I can only answer for myself, and I go thrifting a lot. I am probably a couple times a month, and I have found 3 Raggedy Ann and Andys over probably 5 years in local thrift stores. So it's not very common. If you are looking for one and you can't find it, reach out to your friends and family. Somebody might have a pair or just one that you can have. If that doesn't work, you can look online. There are lots and lots of them on shopgoodwill.com. They only ship to the US, but they do have a lot of dolls. Sometimes they sell them in lots. So if you're looking for a bunch to restore, they have a lot of them. You can find them on eBay. They tend to be a little more expensive on eBay in my own experience, but the difference between Shop Goodwill and eBay is often you will get a better description about what condition the doll's in from an eBay seller. So it really depends on what you're looking for. There are tons of them out there, and lots of them need to be rescued. Our next question comes from Todd Young, 1845, and Todd wants to know, what kind of material do you recommend for making a new body? And what do you recommend for the hair? So this one is an easy answer because all of your patterns, if you're going to make a doll, the back of your pattern is going to have suggested fabric, suggested materials. It's going to tell you what you need for the body. It's going to tell you what kind of fabric you need for the clothing. It's going to tell you what you need for the hair. I'm a quilter first, so I prefer 100% cotton for pretty much everything. So I do use that in my Raggedy Ann and Andy clothes. And full disclosure, I have never made a doll from scratch. I have rescued many, but I haven't made one from scratch. I've made body parts, I've made heads and arms and legs. I think the only thing I haven't made from scratch is a torso. It just depends on like what color fabric you want and how big you want the doll to be. But for the most part, I really do recommend using the suggested fabrics as shown on your pattern. For the hair, I personally like an acrylic worsted weight yarn. I'm allergic to wool, so I don't work with wool at all. These 2 little kiddos over here who have the lighter orange hair, this coral was a Joann Stores Big Twist, which I really like. It's a very soft yarn, but you can use whatever yarn that you like. Worsted is my favorite because it is a chunkier yarn. You can actually go with literal chunky yarn. The smaller the yarn you use, the longer it's going to take you to add hair. For these guys over here, this pair was made by my grandmother, and this yarn is Red Heart. I believe this is Cherry, which is a great color for Raggedy Ann and Andy. I want to show you guys this vintage pattern where they all have different hair colors. It's really limited by whatever you have in your own imagination. So if you want a different hair color, you want different clothing, you want different fabric, use whatever you like. I've had quite a few people ask if I have a video showing how to make the Raggedy Ann or Andy body, and I do not. I rescue them. There are lots of them out there that were made over the years, just hundreds, thousands probably, that are just out there floating around at thrift stores and secondhand stores and antique malls, probably in somebody's closet. And I don't want to add to that. I like to rescue the ones that already exist. So I do not have a tutorial showing you how to make the body from scratch. However, all of the patterns that I have seen, all of the patterns that I own have really good instructions on how to make the body. They're very easy to follow. Just go 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, super duper easy. And maybe someday I will make a full-blown tutorial on how to make the body too. If you want the traditional stripy red and white legs, as you see in these kiddos back here, you want about a 1/4 inch repeat. These are each 1/4 inch stripes. This is Riley Blake stripes. A lot of times, if you can't find fabric during the course of the year, at least in the US, when the 4th of July fabric comes out, you will be able to find red and white stripes. And if you're having trouble finding it, ask at your local quilt store, and usually they can find what you need for you. Our next question comes from Janet, and she really wants to know what to do about mildew. She used the techniques that I used in my video, and the mildew spots didn't come out. So some of the things I recommended, and I did not hear back from Janet, so I don't know if she tried these. I don't know if they worked, but these are what I recommended, were 2 things. One, Carbona Stain Devils has a lot of very specific stain removers, and you will find those, at least in the US, you will find those in the laundry section of wherever you buy your laundry detergent, and they're in little yellow bottles. So they're about this big. I will put a little picture here so you guys can see. They come in all kinds of stuff, and I actually have had really good luck using their coffee and tea stain remover whenever I've had like a beverage stain. That works really well. And for this guy right over here, he had a massive beverage stain. I don't know if it was a soft drink or if it was coffee or tea, but I will put a picture of his before here. And the Carbona Stain Devils got that out and with no problem whatsoever. And I didn't have any issues with it removing color from anything else. Which brings me to my next suggestion, which is Out White Bright. Out White Bright will turn fabric white. If it is not already white, don't use Out White Bright. It is a great way to do reverse tie-dye as well. So if you have a doll that is a white fabric and you have spots you can't get out, you can do like very tiny spot treatments. Do not get it on anything except for the things you want to turn white, and follow the directions, rinse it very thoroughly, and then wash the doll before you do anything else. If you try any of those and they work for you, or you have another suggestion for removing mildew from fabric, please leave that in comments. Our next question comes from Just Another Point of View 7386, who said they were working on a 3-foot Raggedy Ann or Andy doll, and which is one of the options that comes in the many different patterns that you can make, is a 3-foot doll. And they were concerned that the stuffing wouldn't dry. I live in a very humid area, and I air dry all of my dolls, and I've never had any issues drying a doll. So what I recommend is, if you're concerned about it, roll it in a towel, get as much water wicked out as you can. You might do that a couple of times with a couple of different towels. Leave it out to air dry, and just make sure you turn it regularly. So like every half day or so, you know, like turn it in the morning and then turn it at night before you go to bed. And in no time at all, your doll will be dry. And this commenter did let me know that they did do this and it did work. So I hope that helps. Sparky wants to know, how would you go about hand cleaning a doll that still has the hair on that you don't want to remove the hair? There are 2 different things you can do. One is that if you want to machine wash your doll, you can absolutely do that. Even on the gentlest settings, it's likely to make the hair just a little bit fuzzy. So you can either go that direction and then just use some scissors and trim off that fuzz. It does take a little while, but it is a way to do that and get it super duper clean. You can also do a bucket wash. So you can wash it in a bucket or a sink, just do a hand wash, and you can get your doll plenty clean, get it nice and rinsed, and let it air dry, and the yarn will look pretty much perfect if you do it that way. The less agitation it has, the less likely it is to get fuzzy. So either way, whatever works for you and whatever outcome you're trying to achieve. Our next question was left by many commenters, and so I'm going to try to cover it as best I can. A shocking amount of people told me that their dog or their friend's dog or their kid's dog had chewed on the face of their Raggedy Ann or Andy and popped off an eye, and wanted to know where to get a replacement eye. So your Raggedy Ann or Andy that was store-bought, like say a Knickerbocker doll, is going to, for the most part, you're going to find that they have a little hard plastic button eye, and that is going to be a safety eye. And so it's going to look like this. You can buy these in bulk online. You can get small packets of them at most craft stores. And the size really depends on what size eyeball you have for your doll. So you can either take the doll with you or just measure it. I tend to take the doll with me because sometimes the button might be the right size but doesn't look quite right. So being able to audition and make sure it's the right size and it's the right color and it's like this one is more flat and this one is more round, just making sure that that's all correct is very helpful. You will find sometimes that if you just lost a button and you don't have really any fabric damage, that getting this back on is going to be very difficult because you need to get inside of the doll's head to do that. The best way to do that is to go in behind their little butts right above their legs and then remove that stuffing, replace the eye, and then restuff and resew. If you don't want to do that, the next option, and I do not recommend this for kids at all, but if this is your doll and you want to do this for yourself, then you can actually remove the shank off of that. That's the little stem on the back of the button. You can remove that, just cut it off with just wire cutters really. And then you can glue this button on. Friends, it's me from editing. While I was talking about removing shanks from buttons, I realized I neglected to tell you can also buy buttons that don't have shanks. So if you're looking for a doll eye as a replacement that you would like to glue on, E6000 by the way is a really great way to do that. You can get flat button eyes without shanks. Again, I don't recommend that for kiddos. This is called a safety button for a reason. If your doll was homemade, then chances are it has hand embroidered eyes. And if that is the case, you can hand embroider that eye on with the head already stuffed and done. And I do have tutorials that include repairing the face, and I think that's in my Andy tutorial, but I will put that in the description with the information next to it so you can go look at that if you want to. However, some people do like to add button eyes to the dolls and not do the hand embroidered eyes, and if that is the case, a lot of times this is what I see is like a big button like this. I get a lot of my buttons at the thrift store because I have a wonderful store in my area that is a creative reuse store that is craft supplies, sewing supplies. And so I get really lucky a lot there finding little odds and ends like buttons. So I can get a packet of buttons, like a big packet of buttons for like $1. And so a lot of times I will get those buttons and sometimes they're reclaimed buttons. So they've been taken off of clothing or they're just somebody's stash that they cleaned out. You can also go to pretty much any craft or sewing store and find they're just black buttons. They're easy to find. And so if you're looking for something like that, don't get hung up on trying to match your button. If you have this kind of button and you cannot find the perfect one, you have two choices. One, get a slightly mismatched button. It'll add character to your doll. If you're really, really wanting them to match, you might just need to replace them both. Our next question is about doll stuffing. I had a question from Dion who said that she found a Raggedy Ann that her mom had made for her when she was a kiddo. It was in storage for years, and inside of the doll was a yellow padding that had turned rock hard. I am familiar with this. I was also a little kid in the 70s, and what that was upholstery foam. And so what happens to that over time is it degrades and it just sort of turns into a rock. The only thing you can do for that, if you have a doll that has stuffing that has gone hard, is remove all of it and restuff it with a modern material. There are lots and lots of options out there. You can do cotton, you can do polyfill, you can do a mixture, you can get bamboo polyfill, all kinds of stuff just at your local craft store. Our next question is from Chaos847, and they want to know, what if I want to make him a little vest or a little suit? And I pulled my tablet over here so that I could show you this pattern set. This is McCall's 3002, and it's called Teach Me 15, 20, 25 inch Raggedy Ann Andy doll. This is a clothing only pattern. And it has a little vest. It has little shoes. It has you've got a little poncho. There's no doll pattern included in this. This is just clothing. So if you're looking to do a little vest, It does have a little vest in here. My plan for an upcoming project that I'm doing is I'm going to be using this pattern, and I'm going to make the little vest, but then I'm going to use the vest and I'm going to make it a little bit longer, and I'm going to add arms to it to make the coat. I have one last question, then we'll get to a couple of tips that I received from viewers. This question I get asked practically every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, and that is, will I restore your doll? And the short version of that question is no. I don't take commissions at all, and I share these videos so that you can rescue your own doll, or that someone who you know who would be willing to help you can rescue your doll. I do my best to make my answers as clear as possible, and I'm happy to share more tutorials, but I would never do anything else if I did this for commissions, just based on the amount of emails that I get. And this is an occasional happy hobby for me, and I want to keep it that way. Next up, I have a couple of tips from viewers. The first one comes from Lily Creek 7101, and they say that they've had really good luck with Retro Clean for old stained fabrics. I haven't tried Retro Clean yet, but I love that I have another tool in my arsenal that I can pull out and try next time I'm doing a restoration. So if whatever I have suggested hasn't worked for you, you can try Retro Clean and let me know if that works for you. The last one is sort of a tip and a question. This comes from Cat Lady 506. Which says that their mom made hundreds of Raggedy Ann and Andys and sent them all over the world. And she also always put her name on the doll's butt. So they would say Verna, V-E-R-N-A. So 2 things. That's an amazing idea. I love that, to embroider your name on the backside of the doll that you've made or the doll that you've restored. And 2, she would love to know if anybody out there has a doll that says Verna. So if you happen to have a doll that says Verna, leave a comment and tag CatLady506. That is a lot of questions for one video, so I think we'll wrap it up there. If I missed your comment and you haven't had an answer, please leave it below and I will do my best to answer. I do have some new Raggedy Rescue coming up this year, and I'm looking forward to sharing that. It's going to be completely different from what I've done before, and I hope it'll be something you enjoy. If you aren't subscribed, please do. At the very least, give me a thumbs up if you found this helpful. And if you enjoyed this content, I have a weekly vlog where I talk about my show and tell, whatever I happen to be working on, whether it's Raggedy Ann and Andy or quilting or whatever. I hope you'll stop by.